Good evening, everybody. Welcome to What the Church Could Be. Another Thursday night here. Pastor Wes, ready to bring you a life-changing word. Thanks for tuning in. If it's your first time checking our church out, welcome to Thursday night. I don't believe you found this live stream or video if you're watching it later by chance. I believe God has something special in store for you, and I pray tonight's message blesses you. So welcome to our church. To our beloved New York family, those tuning in around the world, the regulars that come every Thursday, man, it is so great to connect with you guys. If you'd be so kind as always, throw the scriptures up in the chat. I would greatly appreciate it. Now, a couple of quick announcements going on here. One, before I forget, we got some things coming up with our back to school event. We're going to do probably some back to school outreach towards the end of August. I don't have the exact dates yet. You're going to get an email blast soon for the opportunity to volunteer, what all that's going to entail. Things like that is what we're going to do shortly. Here is what we're going to do as soon as we get those dates put together. If it hasn't come out and I made the announcement or in the upcoming weeks, just know it is on the way. Either way, it is what it's going to do. The team is working diligently to help me put this all together, and then giving and all that good stuff. Many of you probably are still asking about the building. We're still working on it. The Attorney General office has to sign off on every commercial property sale that happens in New York City. We are still waiting on that process, is what we're doing. Hopefully that'll be coming in this week or roughly, or we're in the middle of it. We're supposed to be very close to that line happening, which will allow us to close on the building, finish some final transactions, what we got to do, and really get in there and start getting to work. And once we're able to do that and assess how quick we're able to get everything set up in the building, we will give a more definitive opening date, is what I can tell you. I appreciate your patience. This is a good problem to have, because what do you mean by good problem to have? We purchased a building, guys. Don't let that get out of sight, out of mind. We're not moving to another temporary home. We are setting roots. We are establishing. This is called the church is growing. And these are called some growing pains, is what a little bit is. So please be patient. We appreciate the patience with you guys have been with us so far. Nicole and I do miss seeing you on Sundays. We can't wait to start connecting together with you. So we're so glad you were able to connect with us through technology still. The other thing is, over the next couple of weeks, I'm probably going to take Thursday and just replay some messages, is what we're going to do. I'm going to introduce a new series tonight I have not taught yet. One I'll probably start teaching on Saturday in about 3 weeks or so, and then teach it on Sunday also. It's still in line with what we've been talking about from a series as a whole as a church, about mental health and things, about loving people. I'm probably going to take the next couple of weeks off. Maybe a third if I need to on Thursday. Don't worry. Saturday and Sunday still going to be going strong. You're going to get your messages in, is what you're going to do. Some of it I got to travel, and I get to travel, so I'm going to be traveling a little bit. And then also just some things with the building and just some family needs I need to address. So, and then I just want to make sure I'm still bringing fresh things to you on Thursday. And sometimes that means taking time, recharging, studying out some things more, and growing, which is part of what I'm introducing with this message tonight, which is going to be a series that I feel is super, super important, is what it is. So without any further, we go about 25 minutes on Thursday nights. I'm going to pray, and we're going to get right into this. So Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight to acknowledge your goodness, to acknowledge your spirit working in us, and we open ourselves to that. Father, I admit I need you to order my steps, to articulate my words. May it be a revelation that points people back to you ultimately, and may it be an on-time word that blesses your people. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, guys, tonight I want to talk about the destructiveness of hate. Now, before you stop and say, I don't have hate in me and this and that and da-da-da. Okay, know all my messages are layered, multiple applications, but you know after I get to this definition, we're going to find areas that we have to constantly, each and every day, guard your heart against hate. If you are a human, you are capable of hate, and you probably do have residue of hate in you, here and there. And I know hate is a strong word, but it is a very dangerous word also that can bring a lot of destructiveness towards your mental health and our ability to love our neighbor as we should. And it does need to be talked about and handled. It also is meant to be applied so we can navigate a world where people experience hate and show hate. Hatred in our nation right now is amplified very high. And it's because we have leadership that fails to follow love, is what it does right now. So it gives more permission and license to normalize hate to the point that we almost don't even see it, because it's like, oh, it's just normal. It's just people being people, this and that. We don't want to go down this road. We want love to be the highest thing that leads, guides our atmosphere, our communities, our state, our city, our nation, our world. We want love, and we want to exuberate that love more than anything. So let me give you this definition. Tonight is about just inserting this foundation. So I can pick this up in about 2 or 3 weeks. We'll come back and really start digging into it. But tonight is about just introducing the idea, and then you can do some work yourself, and then we'll get right back in this thing on Thursday. But let me first, I want to read you a piece of one of Dr. Martin Luther King's sermons. He first delivered these words in his 1967 sermon, "Where Do We Go From Here?" which, of course, later he wrote a book on also. I want to read you this, though. He said, MLK said, "And I say to you, I have also decided to stick with love, for I know that love is ultimately the only answer to humankind's problems. I am going to talk about it everywhere I go. I know it isn't popular to talk about in some circles today, and I'm not talking about emotional bosh when I talk about love. I'm talking about a strong, demanding love, for I have seen too much hate, and I say to myself that hate is too great a burden to bear. I have decided to love. If you are seeking the highest good, I think you can find it through love. And the beautiful thing is, we weren't moving wrong when we do it, because John was right." He's referring to the Gospel of John, 1 John actually. John was right. God is love, and he who hates does not know God, but he who loves has the key that unlocks the door to the meaning of ultimate reality. I read you this to emphasize this about love, that I like he said. He's not talking about emotional bosh when he talks about love. He's talking about a strong and demanding love. Love is not passive. Love is not saying, well, it's okay. You're just behaving the way you're behaving. Love is an act of force. And I'm not talking about deal with sin, deal with sin, deal with sin. I'm not talking about that religious junk. And I'm starting to get more adamant about that because we've been teaching on it so long. It's about love doesn't passively let people go about hating. It is one thing to be, hey, I'm not going to be a person of hate, versus to be anti-hate. That doesn't mean we have to be anti-human, but we should be in a state of anti-hate, which leads us to, like, I'm anti-bigotry. I'm anti-racism. I'm anti-sexual abuse and domestic violence and rape and child trafficking and those things. I'm anti those things. I'm not just, oh, I don't like those things and I don't do those things. I am actively pursuing a world that is empty of those things and filled with love in its place. So we don't want to get this quietness of, well, Jesus is going to come back, so it doesn't matter anyways. We'll just, take care of ourselves and wait for him to come back and tell people about the good news. No, it actively pursues justice and ending people's suffering, or at least easing that suffering. It actively pursues acknowledging equality, equity, and dignity, and, just affirming people is what their humanity is, what it is. And it actively searches out to strip out systems that harm humanity instead of building humanity. So it's not this passive thing. Let me give you the definition of hate. Hate is an intense emotion of extreme dislike, hostility, and aversion. It typically stems from fear, anger, and a sense of injury or unchecked bias. While broad in general use, in legal context, it frequently denotes bias or prejudice against protected groups. Now, I'm going to give you, I'm giving you variations of the definition. And so there's a Webster's dictionary. Then I'm going to give you a further breakdown of the application of the definition. And then I'm going to give you more of a psychological definition of it, by the way. So we're going to work on all that. Core dimensions of hate. First of all, an emotional state in this application. It is characterized as by passionate aversion, enmity, or loathing. Psychologists often view it as a distinct, complex emotional blend rather than just an extreme version of anger. It's not just to be rooted on, I'm angry with you. No, there is a hate. There is a intentional, I want to cause you harm, is what that is. General versus specific. The word is frequently used now, generalized in our society. We've diluted the word, to be honest. So you'll hear it in this application. The word is frequently used casually to describe finding something distasteful. I hate cold weather, but also represents deep antipathy toward people, ideologies, and institutions. So we're not talking about, not really coming after, I hate chocolate ice cream. I hate winter. Things like that, where we just loosely throw it around. I'm not really dealing with hate in that context. I'm talking about what is the root we teach in our church? Love your neighbor, and hatred violates loving your neighbor, is what that is. Some key points on hate and the psychological side of it, which almost sounds contradictory. So I just wanted to give you a rounded, hopefully a well-rounded definition of hate and its various applications is what it is. But more from a psychological standpoint, it says hate is not an emotion, but a learned response. It's actually a learned response fueled by fear, anger, and stress. Imagine that. Causes a lot of stress on the individual who carries it. Point 2, it flourishes on division, misinformation, and social conditioning. Yet it can be unlearned. That's important, social conditioning. Don't think it's flippantly when leaders get up there and say hateful things or hateful rhetoric about different ethnic groups, for example. We have a huge immigration hatred problem, and I'm going to say it that way, in our nation. People like, well, and people do the deflect and talk, well, people should come here the right way, and people should do this, and we're after the criminals, and we're after this, and we've seen the asinine hypocrisy argument in that. Because if you factually walk it out and study it, you realize America is deteriorating the path forward to legal citizenship, for example, because of the hatred and bigotry. And it also is targeting, it is coming more and more evident, it is targeting people of certain ethnic backgrounds, particularly south of the border, is more what it is. And it is dehumanizing them and treating them in a very inhumane way that says, you're not even worth dignity, so we're going to kill you, which we've literally had murder happen in this from federal agents and things like that. You're getting political, Pastor. This isn't a political talk. This is human rights. If human rights are always going to be chalked up as a deflection of politicizing, then we've totally missed the essence of who God is. So let me keep moving. So we talked about, let's see. Oh, another definition. Two other things. Let me. I need to back up on one I skipped over. But key points of hate. We just talked about that. Number 3 of the key points of hate we're talking about from a psychology standpoint. It's replacing hate with understanding requires empathy, education, and open dialogue. Empathy, education, and open dialogue. So the reason why I tell people when a preacher, which they've actually written books about this, because toxic empathy, do not listen to that garbage. There is no such thing as toxic empathy. That does not exist. It is a made-up term, is what that is. Empathy is empathy at the end of the day. And that's all I can say about it. It just is. It's not. It's made up. Like, well, expound upon that. There's nothing to expound on. You're fabricating misinformation because you don't want to deal with your hate as a preacher, particularly in this context. Another definition of hate in its application is legal and civic definition. When used in legal terms such as the FBI, hate crime, Federal Bureau of Investigation, hate crime, hate refers to crimes motivated by an offender's bias against race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, or gender identity. And that's where I deal with people a lot. Like when I bring up words like Islamophobia, homophobia, transphobia, those are all rooted in hate. And we don't get that. So I'm even careful about terms like, oh, we hate the sin and love the sinner. This actually not even scriptural. It's not in the Bible. You can't reference that. And that's one side of it. And and there's a lot of hypocrisy in it too, because we cherry pick what we hate and what we call sin and all kind of stuff. And it always is brought up in a certain way that deflects accountability of, listen, you just want to hate people because you're scared, you don't understand, you don't know what they're doing, this and that. There's a difference of that. Now, there's a place of whether you agree with this or not, which you're going to find a lot of differences there. But I'm just trying to deal with, before we even get to the whether it's sin or not, whether it's this or not, can you get outside the hateful rhetoric and the hateful information and the hateful bubble? It's like, for example, you bring up, which is going on in New York City, we bring up the Islamophobia. We got a Muslim mayor, and we have Muslims in our city who I've talked to, I've interacted, especially when we do outreaches and things like that. And I've met many of them. They've been some of the kindest people I've ever met. And yet the Islamophobia says, well, you're going to go under Sharia law and this and that. Not happening, by the way, in New York City. Is that a thing? Does that exist? It does in certain places. I get where you get it, but you take it and you apply it here where there is no facts, where there is no evidence of any of that going on. So you're taking a stereotype and you're slandering people for it. And also what generates eventually, what hate does, it generates violence. And there has been threats and violence towards the Muslim community because of that. What about Jews? What about this? Every group gets included, but I'm trying to deal with some of the ones that are really spiking a lot more right now is what's happening. And it's not and we can walk, talk, and chew bubblegum all at the same time. More than one thing can be true. We can notice one group is going through that without diminishing another group's suffering. All that applies, by the way, in this. One thing that gets said about when I bring up homophobia and transphobia, it is said, well, they're coming for your kids. When the evidence and the criminal facts show that's not true. When the church brings that up and cherry picks and creates a boogeyman out of that because they hate people, let's just be real. And the reason why I know that, because someone who works in the field, someone who has to be a watcher over our own church and our own kids, is some of the leading child molestation situations that happen is amongst preachers, priests. It's not just the Catholics, by the way. They got their own mess to deal with that they don't want to acknowledge either. But it's not just them either in church world. It's our own priest, it's youth pastors going out. And these are straight white male, and not only white male, but straight, particularly and the reason I bring up straight male, because in that group of segment of white evangelical that I come from, they're the ones that scream the loudest about it typically, yet don't look in the mirror with their own sexual abuse. And a hit dog hollers the loudest, as they say in the South, the country. That's what I mean when I talk about phobia. It's rooted in hate instead of reality, is what it is. Now, if we can come to a place of reality and facts about certain things, of course, we'll deal with that. And there's a place for that. At the end of the day, our church is about the protection for, because don't get me wrong and twisted, we have safety protocols and all the protection of sexual predators in any form, in any shape, to our kids. And we believe in the solidarity as a church to protect that and protect our kids no matter what, and no matter where and who it's coming from. I'm just saying, we're so busy fixated on a group that has the lowest percent, we say has the highest percentage, but factually has the lowest percentage of it, that we actually end up ignoring the group of people that actually has the higher percentage of sexual predatory. And so I don't want to take my eye off the ball with rhetoric and with non-factual information that is rooted in hate and miss the real wolf at the door kind of deal when we talk about that, when it comes to our kids and things like that. So we are definitely in solidarity at our church about making sure we protect our kids no matter what when you hear this stuff. So, but we have to also be factual when we come to that. If we're gonna really protect our kids, let's look at where it's really happening. So the consequences of hate, what it costs us. Let me give you a definition on that. Some things right there. Oh man, I barely got anywhere on this tonight. The consequences of hate, what it costs us. Because you're like, you're going to get scripture. I'm setting this up in a very strategic way. You guys know how I am. Those are with me long term. The consequence of hate, what it costs us. Hate is destructive. So I want you to get into why we want to be guards on our own hearts to make sure hate doesn't get in us. The consequence of hate, what it costs us. Hate is destructive, not just to its targets, but also to those who hold it. It consumes energy, distorts reality, which we just talked a lot about that, and fosters resentment. Research shows that people who cling to hate experience higher levels of stress, anxiety, and even physical health issues. Hate undermines mental and emotional well-being. On a larger scale, we talked about the individual experience. Let's talk about on the community in a larger scale. On a larger scale, hate causes social division, it tears families apart, fuels political and racial tensions, and makes it nearly impossible for societies to progress together. Hate-driven violence, including hate crimes, terrorism, and genocide, ugly word to bring up right now, but let's just be real, it's happening, has tragically shaped history, demonstrating that unchecked hatred leads to devastating consequences. However, if hate is learned, it can also be unlearned. The cycle is not inevitable. I hope you hear that. That's the reason I'm talking about it. So to empower us to be free from it and to help others be free from it. A negative attitude towards others, if not addressed, can impact your mental health and physical well-being. Potential effects may include the following. Here's some following ramifications of hate. It's like, why do I not want to hate? Let's talk about how it really affects us and breaks us down. There's consequences to hate. Lack of close relationships. Didn't say lack of relationships. Lack of close relationships. Excuse me, guys. Sorry about that. Lack of close relationships. It didn't say lack of close relationships. Nobody's going to want intimate with you. Nobody's going to be vulnerable in front of you. You're not going to get close proximity to people if you're full of hate all the time. Heightened stress. Hate stresses you the heck out. That's why I read what MLK said. It's too great of a burden to carry. Why? Because your body was not built to carry hate. It was built to carry love. Mood swings. Wow, imagine that. Hatred can cause mood swings. Social isolation causes isolation. These are, and realize all these can lead to, they go and they go and they go, because what does hatred do? It feeds on fear. It feeds on hurt. And then what eventually happens, you want to go project that fear, that hate into fear, into other people, make other people afraid of you and afraid of other people. And then you want to also make them feed on hate and fears. What you want other people to feel, and hurt. That was the other word I was looking for. You hate, which leads to violence. So you want to use that violence to make people afraid and to hurt people because you're fearful, you're hateful, and you're hurt. And it just becomes a cycle of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Social isolation. These are symptoms of it, though. Feelings of sadness, loneliness, or hopelessness. Mental health concerns, which create, we already talked about anxiety and depression, so it can create mental health dysfunctional issues in your life. Therapy can help address these feelings in a constructive and scientifically supported way. And then I, as a pastor, can support you alongside with that in a spiritual way. And don't think therapists are incapable of that. There's very spiritual therapists out there that respect your faith and everything else and show how they all go together. But a reason I don't always bring that up, I don't want you to go to a religious therapist, because religious therapists can sometimes diminish some of the therapeutic tools that can really work in your life really well, because the religion gets in the way. So hate is based in an issue of power and control. Here's another expression of it, by the way. Hate is based in a issue of power and control. More systemic definition speaking, this is more of a systemic thing. Imagine, which we have this going on in our nation right now, hateful people getting in positions of power to create hateful legislation, hateful systems, hateful driven companies, and hateful programs, and so on and so on and so on. And we wonder why, it eventually spills over, and now people are getting oppressed, people are getting hurt, people are getting injured, people are getting their rights stripped away, people are being, their dignity is being stripped from them because hateful people get in power, and we don't want that. So hate comes from the idea that certain people, hear this, hate comes from the idea that certain people can or should have power and control over others. There's a dominating factor in hatred. These ideas come from our history where certain people took power over others. These ideas were built into systems that can help certain people keep their power. I mean, people talk about, well, that can't happen in our nation. We had how many years of slavery? Jim Crow, segregation, all that stuff went into place. Where do you think all that was? That was hatred. Pure hatred. And it came from even the church too, by the way. There was literally churches and universities that were fighting desegregation and were pro-segregation. So what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to close right here because if I open this up, it's going to take a while. I want to now talk about, this is where I was going to get into the scriptural side. I just really wanted to give you a solid definition and hate and describe it, because I think we just got so many watered down versions of hate handed to us, and we think we're immune to it, and we think it's not all around us at times. I don't want to be like boogeyman all around us. I want to be, hey, it can be in the air we breathe, and we need to be proactive and actively dealing with it. We cannot be bystanders and call ourselves a church, by the way. At least not this church, World Changers, New York City. I'm going to give you 3, and this is going to be vision. These are not necessarily new what I'm teaching on, but I'm going to teach on them in a different way. New vision and foundational core of our church that we base our teaching on and our belief system on. I'm going to talk about 3 different ways, and these are all meant to go like this together. I'm going to talk about 3 different ways love guides our church and our individual lives. 3 different ways love should guide our church, which I'm talking about World Changers here, our specific church, and our individual lives. One is, and I'm not going to expound, I'm going to just give them to you, and we'll get back to this and all the scriptures behind it, and I'll teach on this is what I'll do. One is God in his nature is love. God in his nature is love. 2 is a lifestyle of love is the only thing that matters. 3 is we cultivate a lifestyle of selflessness. These are the 3 ways we explain love guides our lives in our church. First of all, we build everything on the basis that God is love and his nature is love. 2 is we develop and cultivate a lifestyle of love, because that's all that really matters at the end of the day, and that will deal with a lot of things. We don't cultivate a lifestyle of trying to get rid of sin. We try to cultivate a lifestyle of loving at a higher level. And if you follow that, sin won't be an issue. And 3, we cultivate a lifestyle of selflessness, not selfishness. And we teach from the basis of that. So I know there was a lot of information I dumped on you. But I hope you got the foundation. I know I'm introducing it, and it's like I'm going to take a couple of weeks off, so I'm going to kind of leave you hanging here. But this one's going to be really powerful. This message it's going to be very important is what I really mean when I say powerful. It's really not powerful. Yes, powerful, but important. I want to make sure this is one of those, I want to set the tone and the culture in our church even further. Especially we get closer to opening up and embracing the community. I want to make sure we got these things checked. I want to make sure we're going about our days, or people are coming to our church, that we really loving and striving towards the true definition of love, and not Christian hate that is laced in a false love is what I want to do. So anyways, I'm going to close right there. pray you are blessed tonight. I pray everyone is doing well. Nicole and I, as always, send our loving blessings. We pray you have an awesome night, and we will catch you Saturday and Sunday. Have a good night.